There were reports that the Jets will be aggressive this offseason, Matt. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense, right? I think there's, like I just said, they have a lot of money to spend. Their defense was an abject disaster last year. I think, they could be aggressive without completely blowing the future. And I know we talked about not wanting to trade capital and give up, top 50 picks for what would be a bridge quarterback. But I think there's a world where you could be aggressive and not get into the silliness. Like you don't have to go full 2019 Mike McCagnon and blow the linebacker market completely out of the water and bring in Le'Veon Bell and you sign Jermaine Johnson to this monster deal. I think there's a world where they could be aggressive and fill in starters, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to bring in a veteran linebacker. I also think they bring in a veteran safety and probably a defensive lineman at some point too. And that's not to mention all the picks that they have. I think they can get creative and even move around on the draft board to get even more assets. So they have a lot of assets in both the NFL draft and with the cap dollars that they have. And I would expect them to use it coming off a 3-win season.
Makes sense. Look, they have so many needs. I just wonder, are they going to spread it out or are they going to go after some like big fishes like Tyler Linderbaum is the hot name we've been discussing?
Yeah, I would love Linderbaum on this team. I think he's, obviously elite center. He'd probably blow that market up, but man, that offensive line would be really special with him. If you are going to splurge, that's the kind of player that I'd want to splurge on, right? Like he's in his mid-20s in the prime of his career and would really elevate what's, in my opinion, an already pretty good offensive line and bring them up a tier, which, they got to be good at something, this team.
I got some exciting news. You talk about paying it forward. Peg and Artie want Indy Jets to be the winner of the jersey raffle, should their name be drawn. Indy Jets also dealing with some health stuff, so it's a very nice gesture by Peg and Artie. We will make sure that those memberships go towards another OG listener of the show, Indy Jets. All right, let's talk quarterback options now, Matt. As we sit here a couple weeks out from free agency, break down what you would like to see the Jets do at the most important position in sports.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have a easy no-brainer option. I think Kirk Cousins would make a lot of sense for the Jets, assuming that he's released. I like you mentioned, I don't know if trading for a veteran quarterback and giving up the assets is the route for this team to go. But a Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota tier quarterback, I think, is the route this team is most likely to end up with. I'm also not really a huge fan of like the reclamation projects. Like Anthony Richardson's name has gotten brought up a few times and obviously was a high first round pick, but I just don't have the faith in this team being the one that's gonna, take in this broken quarterback and get the most out of them. So to me, I wouldn't really look to trade for that, even though you would argue that he's a young player, maybe has the highest ceiling. I think the Jets are going to go on the safer route with a veteran that's not going to be crazy costly, but raises the floor of the quarterback room.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. Jaquez says, if we sign Cousins, could we sign him to the vet minimum since the Falcons would still be paying him? How does it work? No, because he redid his contract. So a lot of his guaranteed money has already been paid out to him. And he would just be like a free agent. It wouldn't be Atlanta paying him off. They restructured his deal. At least that's how I've understood it. You'd have to just pay Kirk Cousins, who's been a business Hall of Famer in his career as far as making a ton of money in contracts. You'd have to pay him, probably the most money to get him to take your gig over another one.
Yeah, I would think so. At least there's not a ton of spots that would be offering him a starting quarterback role. Maybe like a Pittsburgh, right? Depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But, a lot of these other spots would be a competition. Like I've seen, him being linked to go back to the Minnesota Vikings, but would he want to do that with JJ McCarthy there? And I don't know how, the relationship is after things ended. They decided to move on. But, I think the benefit that the Jets have is they don't really have anybody else. So, he would be a no doubt starter. And yeah, they'd have to pay a little bit of money. But like we said, they have a ton of money to spend. So, and at 38 years old, I don't think he's getting a massive long-term deal. This is probably a short, 2-year kind of deal for him.
Super chats, cut the line. Let's go to this one from Bino. Thank you, Bino, for supporting the show.
The Jet fans getting a little crazy.
1 or 2 year deals in free agency. No way, in my opinion, Woody Gibbs long-term on Glenn guys with his status so uncertain. Well, I mean, they're typically football contracts like 2 or 3 of it at the most are guaranteed. So nothing's going to be that long term. That's just how it goes. But you got to let these guys spend some money on players they want. So they're going to be aggressive. It's just a matter of, if you really got to pay the jet tax, does it make sense to be that aggressive on one guy or spread it out to a couple different guys?
Yeah, and no, exactly. And I get where Bino is coming from on not wanting to go crazy long term on the Glenn guys because you don't know if he's going to be here. But, at the same time, I think, you have to go to 3 years often on these free agency deals. And, with how a lot of them are structured on the 3-year deals, they usually have an out after year 2. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if, a new staff is coming in and they maybe have some holdovers for a year of Glenn guys, and then they get their own guys in the building the following year. That's usually how this thing tends to go. But, in order for them to sign some of these guys in free agency, I think that's in order to be competitive, you're going to have to go to that 3rd year. I don't think you're going to get a ton of 1 or 2 year deals.
Ozzy says Linderbaum would be awesome. It would, because then imagine an O-line all locked in of Linderbaum and then the 2 bookend tackles of Olu and Membu with Tippmann. Like, whoever the quarterback is, you're setting them up for success. And then beyond just this year, 2027, week 1, quarterback Arch Manning or whoever, they're set up with the best O-line the Jets will have on a field together since Mark Sanchez in 2009.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And you'd be setting up, like you said, you'd be setting up your quarterback for, the most amount of success. They have a wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson. If you bring back Breece Hall, you feel pretty good about that running back room as well. And if that's your offensive line, again, talk about raising the floor of an offense. I think that's exactly what you'd be doing.
Super chats cut the line. Pat Godek in the Asmaniac raffle for 2. Let's go.
And here we go. Let's go. Let's go.
In a year from now, what in the season would you want to see that make you be all right with keeping Glenn? Example, 8 to 9 wins, quarterback situation looks good, defense looks solid, etc. Love both your shows. Well, thank you, Pat. I think you nailed it. All right. They win 8 games, which would be more than they won in any year in now over a decade. The last time the Jets won more than 7 games was the 2015 season when they went 10-6 and missed the playoffs the last week of the year. Obviously, if there's some sort of quarterback situation that we feel good about, you might even ignore just what the total win total says and base it on that. And yeah, if Glenn taking over the defense drastically improves things, that will help him as well. So I think you basically nailed it, Pat, in your super chat. If those things happen, that helps Aaron Glenn be here for a 3rd year. There's no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it's going to be eye test. I don't know if there's one specific thing where it's like, if they get to this win total, that's what it is. Right. And I think I really like how Pat laid this out. 8 to 9 wins, which is very optimistic for this team. But if they figure out the quarterback and you'll feel pretty good about the quarterback and the defense, I'm not saying they got to go from 30 all the way up to 1, but if they take a step up and are like middle of the pack defensively, then I think you could sell yourself on them improving and this staff improving and getting a 3rd year. It's going to take a lot, obviously, but under this laid out situation, I do think they'd get 2027.
Question from J-Quest. Could you see trading for Jameis Winston? I would love that.
Hey, Jameis, would you come to the Jets? They might need a quarterback. Yeah. Jets, Jets. Ladies and gentlemen, our exclusive interview with now friend of the show, Jameis Winston.
I think we got a chance, Matt. What do you think?
From that interview, I think he did a great job trying to recruit him. So I appreciate that. I like Jameis. Similar to what I said with Mac Jones, from the Giants' perspective, you have a young quarterback who, got banged up a couple times. I don't know if I'd be trading Jameis Winston if I'm the Giants. I think he'd be more valuable as a backup.
It just depends on what the Giants would want, because he's a good backup. He's under contract for 1 more year. Like, as much as I love Jameis, I don't want to trade a 2nd-round pick for him. I don't have a 3rd-round pick. And at that point, if it's like the Giants want that, I understand why they'd ask for that. He's a really good backup. Like, he'd have a huge market if he was available. Like, I would not be in any rush to trade him if I'm the Giants, unless I'm blown away with an offer. And I don't know who's blowing you away for Jameis Winston.
No. And like, he's on a very reasonable contract too. His cap hit next year is $5 million for the Giants. And I believe the trading team would be like 3.95 million. So under 4 million. I think you'd have to give up a decent amount to get him for it. You consider just that he's a good backup and one of the better backups in the league. But on top of that, on a team-friendly contract, it would be costly.
So a couple things. One, the idea that Kirk would have the same impact as Darnold. Mike, I love you. I work with you every Sunday this past season. Stop it. Two, I don't actually hate the idea of going after Cousins, but I think Mike is overrating the Jets roster a little bit. He's going to have this career renaissance. I mean, he was in a better situation in Atlanta this past year, was he not? And he actually ended the year playing pretty well. So I don't hate the take in general, but I think when we're talking about Cousins to the Jets and just we ignore all the other issues with the defensive side of the ball, and most importantly, the atrocious head coach, it's tough to sit here and be that gung-ho like Mike was. But I don't hate the premise of actually bringing in Kirk Cousins as the bridge for a season. So a little all over the place, but I don't hate the take of actually going after Cousins.
Well, first off, I just got to say it's great to see New York Game Day co-host getting some love on national ESPN television. Wow, he's got some great things since he's crossed paths with Jake Asman, that's for sure. I'm in the same ballpark with you on Kirk Cousins. I don't hate it. Now, again, I think the question we can't answer is what happened in 2018 where he used the Jets, and not only used the Jets because people use teams all the time, but used the Jets and then filmed it documentary style and made the Jets look like a joke. Woody Johnson was the owner in 2018. He is still the owner now. Will he get past that level of petty to say, you know what, screw that guy. I'm never going to go to him. And I don't care if he is one of the better options here in 2026. That's a question we don't know the answer to. But just on the surface, like of all the options that are out there, our offensive line, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, depending, I'm sure it's another topic we'll get into. Kirk Cousins should be near the top of the Jets list. Will the feeling be mutual? I guess that's up to interpretation. But I agree. Another year removed from the Achilles. Kirk Cousins, when he stepped in for an injured Michael Penix last year, showed some chutzpah.
I think Kirk Cousins, if protected, can be competent. What worries me about Cousins, though, he's another year older. He's playing in the cold. And to your point, does he want to be a Jet? And I think he's going to have other options. I think Minnesota would be a team that would make some sense for him. I'm also not convinced he's definitely done with the Falcons. They could cut him and then bring him back. His contract allows him to do that. He said that he's open to doing basically anything the last time he was asked about this during Super Bowl week. So, again, the idea of going after Kirk Cousins makes sense, but I don't believe he'd choose the Jets if he has other options, which I think he will.
I think there is a chance that 2018 just happens again. History repeats itself. If the Vikings say, hey, Kirk, do you want to come home? I think the Jets are out, and I think every other team is out. He's got family out there. J.J. McCarthy looked like trash. He never wanted to leave, but the Vikings told him, apparently, according to Kirk, like, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback high. And he's like, oh, I want no part of that. Goes to Atlanta, and then, ironically enough, that happens to him anyway in Atlanta. So I think if Minnesota wants him, he's going back. But I think every quarterback that's available is going to want to go to Minnesota. They just saw what happened to Sam Darnold. They're like, hey, man, that's a quarterback factory. I can grace the presence of Kevin O'Connell and then go somewhere else after. So if the Vikings have higher options than Kirk, then all of a sudden now Kirk is available. If the Vikings want him, I think the Jets are screwed. If they don't want him, I think the Jets are competitive with the other teams that's going to want Kirk Cousins out there in the universe.
Your thoughts on Breece's future? Do you think they should use the tag on Breece?
Yeah, I would franchise tag Breece Hall. I think losing him for nothing would be really disappointing. They decided not to trade him at the trade deadline because they didn't like the return that they would be getting, which is fine. But in that case, I don't want to just have him leave in free agency because, with the comp pick formula, with the amount of money the Jets have in free agency, I think they're going to spend enough to where they would cancel out whatever pick they would get for Breece Hall in the comp pick formula. So I would franchise tag him. I know 14 million or, a little bit over 14 million is a lot for a running back, but just because you franchise a player, that doesn't mean that you can't then come to an agreement on a long-term extension. Or even if you franchise tag him and it seems like he doesn't want to be here, then okay, you have the tag and trade option. You could trade him somewhere where he's interested in signing a contract, and then that team can negotiate with him, and at least you get something back in return for him. So to me, it makes perfect sense. I don't really see a reason why you wouldn't franchise tag Breece Hall.
What's the plan if you just let him go for nothing? Like, why didn't you just take the 4th round pick that Kansas City reportedly had on the table?
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, there's options out there available. Tyler Algier has been a name that's been brought up a lot recently. Obviously, Kenneth Walker's hitting free agency, Rico Dowdle, Travis Etienne, guys like that. So there's options if the Jets do lose Breece Hall, but it's more about like just the roster building philosophy. Losing him for nothing and not getting an asset back is what I have an issue with.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, what did you really do if you just you go out there and you don't trade him? You say you're going to build your team around him. They talked about him in like present tense being on the team at the end of the season presser, and now all of a sudden, like, he's gone again. Like, the Jets have changed their mind and have changed their plans so many times. I guess I can't be surprised at this point, but that to me would be a big mistake if you just let him go for nothing. And I'd use the legit franchise tag on him, not the transition tag, because the transition tag, if someone offers him a deal, then all of a sudden, all right, well, if you don't match it, he's gone. You can't trade him on the transition tag. I want to use the franchise tag. It shows good faith in the fact that you could pay him an extra $3 million on that, and you keep him. And if someone wants to make a trade for him, you still can. But if not, you have him for a year, and you have all the cap space. So the extra $3 million to Breece, like, I'm willing to do that to keep a good player in the building and not create another hole.
Yeah, exactly. And with the Jets cap situation, like the extra $3 million isn't a huge deal. If they were pressed up against the cap and really fighting for it, maybe it's a different story. But even with all the dead money, the Jets are projected to lead the league in dead money for the 2026 season. They still are going to have nearly $90 million in cap space. So, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a huge deal if he even was to play on the 1 year, $14 million deal. But in a perfect world, I'd like to sign him to a contract extension similar to the one that Kyron Williams got, where it's I think it's around $11 million a year over 3 years, but how it's structured really more like a 2-year deal. I think that fits with the Jets timeline and bringing in a young quarterback because, as we know, running backs are really impactful for young quarterbacks, and especially one that could catch the football out of the backfield.
How about this in the chat? Peg and Artie gifting 5 memberships. Now, Artie was in the hospital, Matt, earlier this week. He had a mild heart attack. I believe he is now officially home. Artie called in the other day and gave us an update. Artie, a true legend, a day after having a heart attack, calling into a Jet YouTube show to give Jet takes and check in with the community. He won a signed Garrett Wilson helmet on the show that day. And guess what? He's paying it forward. 5 gifted memberships from Peg and Artie.
And here we go. Let's go. Let's go.
I might have a heart attack if the Jets ever figure things out.
Yeah, glad to hear that Artie is back home and feeling better. Best of luck on the recovery. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, I might be right there with you if the Jets ever turn this around and play in a meaningful football game again.
Would be nice. Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. Breece Hall, do you want the Jets to retain him on an extension, use one of the tags, or let him go? Where are you at with Breece?
Where am I at with Breece? First off, on the giveaway, that Keyshawn Johnson jersey is real pretty. I love that.
Get the membership. Get in.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to jump on the phone, see if I can multitask here on the show. It is simple, man. You absolutely unequivocally have to franchise tag Breece Hall. And I've seen so many comments on YouTube, Twitter, X, Facebook, Snapchat, this, that, or the other, and would say, don't tag Breece, let him go. Use that money on someone else. Hell no. I am franchise tagging Breece. If Breece has packed his bags and he's ready to go, sorry, sucker. Tag, you're it. 100%. I'm tagging Breece Hall. One of the tags, non-exclusive, exclusive, or transition. I prefer not to use the transition tag, quite frankly, because that opens up the door that you can lose him for nothing. And why risk it? It's a $3 million difference between the transition tag and either of the exclusive or non-exclusive. I'm not playing games. I'm tagging him and either attempting to work out a long-term deal or letting him play on it, or tag and trade. We'll send you, go talk to the teams. Let's use the non-exclusive. Breece Hall, you could go explore the market. No one's going to sign you to an offer sheet because we get 2 first-round picks if you do, so no one's going to do that. But we can allow you to talk to everyone in the league, find the top 10 teams you want to go to. We talk to them, say, all right, who wants to give up a third? You? All right, you. Work out a contract with Breece. All right, we're all good? Slap dap. All right, Breece Hall, you're going to Kansas City or wherever the hell it is, and we get an asset. I refuse to lose Breece Hall for nothing. We have the 4th most cap space in the league. Breece Hall is not walking out of that door. If the Jets don't tag him, it is insane.
I'll tell you what. Here's what I would do. I'm
Okay.
using the full franchise tag on him, and I'll tell you why. I am not risking any team making an offer if I put the transition tag on him and the Jets are like, we don't want to match that. I want Breece on the team. You guarantee he's on your team for another year if you put the franchise tag on him. He might not like it, but you could say, hey, here's the sign of good faith. We are going to give you the franchise tag, Breece, so you get an extra $3 million than if we put the transition tag on you and no one actually made an offer that for your services, right? I mean, look, if Breece Hall wants like the Kyron Williams deal, 3 years at $33 million, about $25 million guaranteed. I think another team might give him that. So if I'm the Jets, I don't know if I want to do that, given where I'm at in this rebuild. But I want him here for another year with this offensive line, with whoever the quarterback is. I'm not losing him for nothing after I didn't trade him. So the transition tag means you still could lose him, and you get lucky. Maybe no one throws a contract offer your way for you to match at him. But I'm with you. You have all this cap space for the extra $3 million. Give me the full franchise tag at, I believe, $14.3 million and go from there.
Yeah, and I see veteran Jets fan says in the audience, let me make this clear. I don't give a shit if Breece Hall doesn't want to be here. Oh, you don't want to be here, Breece? Well, in that case, you can just leave. Hell no. Yeah, censor me, Jake Asman. Get that censor ready. I'm on the Jerry Springer Show. You better up in your... Hell yeah. Come on, man. I don't care what Breece wants. We have the tag. It is collectively bargained. Every team has it. NFLPA, you don't want it anymore? How about on the next CBA, you try to negotiate it out and do something about it? Don't complain after you sign the CBA later. That's lame. Let me make sure I try to use proper vernacular here on the show. So I don't care if he wants to be here or not. And let's be honest, the team doesn't even meet until April. So if you have any fear of locker room stuff, which by the way, if Breece is pissed, he's not showing up to voluntary workouts anyway. So you have plenty of runway to tag and trade him, and you can work it out. Tag and trades happen. They are rare in a general sense, but they do happen. I think Breece Hall, who, by the way, on the Athletic Big Board, out of the top 150 free agents, Breece Hall is ranked number 2. You're telling me no one is going to tag and trade for Breece Hall? BS. Someone is going to see Breece, see he's 24 years old, and they're going to want to acquire him. And if not, then you keep him. Great. The Jets they have enough holes as it is. We're going to open up another one with a running back that makes no sense.
I agree. I love the passion.